Shots fired. We are live. The new Comic Book Day Book Club is here. Alec is here. I am here. That means it's Wednesday or it's another day. We just happen to do a show together. You're watching this on the replay. Here. Uh-oh. Alec is here. I am here. You got to turn that down, I think, Kirk. Or it's another day. We just happen to do a show together.
Just mute the YouTube video.
Do that for just a second. He can get it fixed. This is New Comic Book Day Book Club. We are here to talk about Hellblazer, John Constantine Hellblazer. This is the black label that came out today.
I got that cover too.
Did you? I like this one better than the other.
No, I used it for the thumbnail too.
Yes, you did. So if you didn't know, I see that some people like Barbarian are in the chat saying, hey, was there a Constantine book today? Yes, there was. And hello, what is up, Barbarian Kung Fu? I have not read a whole ton of Hellblazer, so I'm kind of excited to hear everybody's thoughts on this. I've only read a little bit, and I think it was mostly with Comic Tom and Fire Guy Ryan when they did that discussion of dangerous habits. Alec, have you read much of Hellblazer?
Here or there, but like I think was probably the longest running Vertigo title, and so I've definitely not read all of it.
Okay.
But, you know, my knowledge of John Constantine is fairly limited, I will be honest.
Okay. And Kirk, how about you? I know you've been researching a lot. So everybody, this is Comics on the Mind or Mind Shift on Instagram. Kirk, can you hear us all right? Oh, he can see us, but he can't hear us, huh? I can't hear him. Oh. We're having some tech issues here.
Okay. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you.
You hear me now?
Yeah.
Issues here.
What you want to do is just mute it.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, like.
Yeah, I think so. So what you got to do, Kirk, you got to mute the whatever screen you're watching the video on. You got to mute that, and you got to just watch it on your phone. You got to listen to us only on your phone.
Well, you can watch it on the computer. You just need to, like, there's a little mute button on the YouTube video.
Boom. Oh, here it is.
Nope, that muted your mic.
Here, I got an idea. Tutorials on the fly.
Right.
I'm gonna screen share.
I'm learning. Yay.
Well, it was all fine, and then we went live, and then it was playing on two screens now. It's the night of tech issues, says Bear Island.
I know, right?
All right, so if right here on your YouTube video, there's a little mute thing, and if you turn that off, that will stop the echo.
Oh, I didn't even see the screen. Sorry about that. Boom. Gotcha.
Boom.
Is that better?
Nope, I'm still hearing it.
Perfect.
No, still going.
Nope,
All right,
we can
cool.
still hear it. We can still hear it.
Sorry about that, you guys.
Sorry, Kirk. It's still playing, man. I don't know where it's playing. I feel like you're watching the video somewhere.
Yeah, that's weird.
You just got to turn it off, I think, wherever you're watching it. Just use whatever your camera is that's playing it. That's all you
How
need.
about now?
Yeah, now it's not doing it.
Perfect.
We did it.
Yay. That's all right. It happens.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's way better.
All right, cool. Yay! All right, I am so sorry about that, you guys.
It's all right. StreamYard is a little frustrating sometimes, and there's a lot of ins and outs. You can't talk in the chat without having it open somewhere else. It's a little bit complicated. But
Still echoing.
and it's still there. Dude, Lord Almighty, I don't know how we're going to deal with this.
Yeah.
Just close your YouTube window.
Should I put earphones in?
No, I'd say just close the YouTube window. Just you don't need it.
Yeah, all the YouTube. Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Oh.
You closed
I don't
it.
know. I didn't bump it. Yeah, he must have shut himself out. I'm very sorry, folks. I know this is frustrating, but Kirk is an awesome guy. If you don't know him on Instagram, he's Mindshift with a Y on Instagram, and then he just started a channel here on YouTube called Comics on the Mind. I think he's just really funny, really sweet guy, and has a lot of good ideas, and just really brings he makes me smile and laugh every time I see his stuff. So I invited him on here to talk Hellblazer. He has been reading up on Hellblazer lately. I like I said, I've only read Dangerous Habits, which is a great read, very powerful look at cancer and sort of the mindset of Constantine. Have you read Dangerous Minds, Alec?
I've not read that arc.
Oh, Dangerous Habits is what it's called.
No, you got Mind on the Mind now.
I do have Mind on the Mind.
So let's. I always look at an issue number 1 of something as something that you shouldn't have to know an incredible amount of backstory for anyway. Because if you need to know backstory, it should be a number, 50 something. If someone goes to a comic shop and picks up number 1, you should be able to pick up that book, not knowing the character at all, and be able to read it.
That's true.
And I don't think this was very lore heavy, but it also did not really give you a background of what John Constantine is and what he does. So I think there was that assumption that you at least knew who the character was and what his abilities were.
Yeah. He doesn't, I will say he doesn't use a lot of his abilities in this. I think he's more of a spectator on this ride for the most part, it felt like to me.
Well, he's not even the one narrating it.
No. But I'm saying things just sort of seem to be happening in and around him. I don't see him doing using any powers at any point, really.
Right. But I'm going to jump right ahead into the story a little bit. When the gang kidnaps him and wants to use him for his abilities, if you don't know what that is, you might just be like, well, I don't understand. Why
do they want him?
Right. But at the same time, if you pick up a Spider-Man number 1, are you expected for them to talk about what Spider-Man's origin is, what he does every time? How much, if you're, a character that's been around for 30 years, should you need that much of a recap on who he is?
And I think there's also that fine line that we always talk about with over explaining things versus leaving things for the reader to kind of stumble through. I don't think we needed a full explanation of his powers in this, just to know that he can do things and people want him for those abilities. I'm fine with letting that sit on the back burner. Even if I was somebody that didn't fully understand what he could do, I would know he's the lead in a superhero comic book. I would just write it out and find out later what he can do.
Yeah.
I like that they didn't just spend all this time with previously on Hellblazer.
I'm John Constantine. I talk to demons.
Whoa.
That's a Keanu thing.
That was a Keanu joke. Had to do one at least, right? So this story focuses on attacks that are happening in a park in England, and a gang who is seeming to be a gang of drug dealers who are seeming to be the victims of these attacks. These attacks seem to be supernatural in some way. And so the leader of the gang goes out and gets John because he wants John to fix the problem.
It's weird to talk about yourself in the third person.
I do that a lot.
Yeah. Yes. So they kidnap him in order and kind of twist his arm, for lack of a better term. They kind of force him into trying to help them with their problem, because a line he says, why would I want to help you, evil motherfuckers? Sorry. Yeah. It's on your channel.
Yeah, it's my channel, but at the same time, I should have said at the beginning, we're talking about Black Label books. We're on DC. This is definitely going to be a red episode. This is not going to be a typical John's Comics with Kids kind of thing. This is going to be a little more raw.
So I apologize if everyone had their kids watching.
Let me put Kirk in here and see how he's doing now.
Is that way better, you guys?
Yeah,
So
I don't hear
far,
anything.
Alright, cool.
Okay, great.
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that, you guys. My
Sorry.
roommate helped me out. He's the tech savvy guy in the house.
Growing pains, no problem.
Yeah, for sure.
Bueller even said early on, it happens to all of us, and John was.
Yeah.
So this is very true.
Yeah. Thank you, Bill. I appreciate it.
He
So what-
legitimately walked me through this a bunch. So we were in the middle of talking about the plot for this, and Alec wanted to say a little something. I interrupted you.
Sorry, Alec. Go ahead.
That's all right. I was apologizing that everyone had their kids watching because I cursed. But my point is that he, says like, "Why would I help you, evil sons of guns?" And they basically threaten to kill someone if he doesn't. So he is quite, directly strong-armed into helping them. So it's not like he's doing this out of some sake of heroism or anything.
Which I think we get pretty early on, even if you didn't know much about Constantine, that he is not somebody that does a lot of stuff out of altruism. There's not a lot. He's not somebody. He has always another layer going on. At least I picked that up a little bit here, and I know it from other books as well.
Yeah, I mean, the book starts with this whole scene, which is kind of the only reason it's there is to, I guess, set up his character a little bit, where he's talking to the bouncer and he's getting kicked out of the bar for telling jokes about the Queen.
The Queen, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, it's still something of a big deal in England, I think, when that sort of, there's always people that take a lot of umbrage with people that play fast and loose with the royal family.
Speaking of which, so this is maybe a question for later in the episode, but something that I've talked about quite a few times with Black Label stuff. We talked about in the Harleen episode, where they said they used the F word when referring to it as like an adverb, but not as a verb. So like when it was a verb, they asterisked it out.
Gotcha.
But so like they also obviously have some sort of line where like, this is too far for the Black Label. And in this, she tells the joke about Spartacus.
Yeah.
Where she says, he's hung like this.
Yeah.
I've heard that joke for years about Jesus, which obviously makes it much more offensive. And I'm not like defending that or saying like they should have used that, but why did they feel the need to make it less offensive? Like, this is the Black Label. Like, you could have just done that. And
yeah, I think
arguably it would have had more impact because he makes this joke and she's trying to one up him, and making a joke about Spartacus isn't really that offensive, even if it's a dick joke.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about the line in the sand that the Black Label has drawn, and that there've been repeated moments when books have felt like, is there any reason this needed to be called Black Label? What is the meaning of the Black Label these days?
This is definitely an 18+ book.
Yeah, I mean the villain alone, or the drug dealer gang leader, is definitely a raw character, and his whole voodoo elements are pretty powerful. Now, Kirk, you've been reading up on Hellblazer over the last few weeks. Actually, before I even asked you to do this, you had already been posting stuff about reading about Constantine.
Yeah, because like definitely like this is like my first like dive into like Hellblazer and even the Sandman universe. I like you were saying before in the beginning, like I haven't read much Sandman either, or like any of the Hellblazer stuff, but I read like the Sandman Presents the Hellblazer, and that was like a really good, for me personally, that was a really good intro to like the personality of like John Constantine, because like I was one of those guys who like watched the movie, didn't realize it was a comic book adaptation, and when I found out that he was, like, I was like, oh my goodness, I got to dive into this. And yeah, like I didn't realize how like cold-blooded he was, because even in the beginning of that book, like he sacrifices this dude who this guy thinks he's like gonna change the whatever end of the world scenario is happening, and like he's like, no, I'm just trying to test the waters, basically, and he kills this guy like just out of nowhere, you know. But that's
Well,
like apparently
a beginning of this one, he's outside of the bar trading dirty jokes with the bouncer lady, and this guy comes up who's all scarred and looking horrible, who clearly was promised by John to fix him at some point.
I think John put it on him.
But he also mentions that John was going to take it off at some point or make it better. And it's clearly gotten horribly worse. He's left this guy in an awful state, and he almost makes a joke about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say, though, that, like, even compared to Batman Damned, where he was a minor player in that, I feel like, was more Constantine in Damned than he was in this. Like, I feel like he's so smarmy in, like, you know, a lot of his stuff, and this was kind of like smarmy-ish. I wanted him to be smarmier. How many times can I say smarmy?
A bunch. TJ, it is a regular-sized issue. He's kind of bummed that Black Label has become a little bit inconsistent in the format. Some of the magazine size, like The Question, which I thought was great last week, and I know Mind Shift.
I loved it too.
The Question last week. Alec, did you read The Question?
No, my shop is sold out of it, so I got to track one down. But
okay, I might have one if you need me to look around.
The Mr. Freeze book that came out.
I can grab mine.
No. You don't have to, Kurt. Oh, he's gone.
The Mr. Freeze book that just came out the same week as The Question, though, was regular size, wasn't it?
And that was a Black Label too, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
We were doing
so
the same.
It's been back and forth. This is not the first Black Label book, too. And the other thing Black Label is doing, which is just truly bizarre to me, is they're reissuing stuff under the Black Label banner.
Right.
Including the thing I keep harping on is DC The New Frontier, which has some like more mature themes, but it's not like for mature readers.
Well, and we debated that when we read Harleen, this idea that is the Black Label supposed to be more adult content, or is it what they're now trying to call it, which is artist, creator managed or creator edited.
Yeah,
run.
At least this one says 17 plus on the cover instead of like hidden in the back.
Right? Because some people are implying that no, Black Label is really meant to be just artistic freedom more than like racy material.
Yeah, I didn't.
I disagree. I understood it to be different, but we're talking about the marketing of the Black Label, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, back to the book. What were your first impressions? Like,
go ahead, Kirk. Why don't you tell us how you felt when you first cracked this bad boy open?
Oh, the new one that came out today. I liked it. For me, it was kind of hard to keep up with a lot of like the British idiom, like and their like language. I'm like, I honestly had to look up some of the language, but it didn't keep me away from like getting through the book. Like, you know, it was still a really good read. And I don't know if anybody read the other book that's connected to. Give me one second.
Yeah, because they dropped another Sandman adjacent story. I think it was 2 weeks ago. This was the one from 2 weeks ago, I think, right?
Oh, the one the Sandman presents
something like that, right?
Yeah, Hellblazer. Yeah, that one was really good. And I even like how he has to like. I'm sorry if anybody hasn't read it, so spoiler alert.
Oh, it's a full spoiler show. Go
But like he runs into like an older version of himself, and like for me, like I like obscure, weird stuff like that, and that kind of like tripped me out. I'm like, oh yeah, and like if you read the end of this Sandman, of this Constantine that just came out, like. You see like a little cameo of him like at the end of it, and I was like, yes, because like usually one shots don't really connect to like continuity, right? So it's like I thought that was pretty cool because they're supposed to be like I feel like this was supposed to be like a one shot that Sandman presents.
Yeah.
Hellblazer. So
I would expect so. It'd be weird if they had 2 ongoings.
yeah.
But going back to what you were saying before, it was something I was actually going to touch on as well, which was the language and the way they use the language. So I found it very strange that they decided to make the characters talk in British slang and write it with an accent and use just kind of like dense dense ways of talking. So it wasn't just like straightforward. Like the character who was narrating it, the mob boss, was eccentric, and he spoke in a way that people don't speak in. And he used slang, and they wrote it with an accent.
Well, I'm confused. How else would you do it? Because it seems pretty logical to me that you'd want, if they were speaking with a British accent, you would want to highlight that accent, and they would probably use idioms or language to that area, right?
Yeah, I just thought like all 3 were very heavy.
Okay.
I thought like Garth Ennis does it really well, where he'll write like arse.
Okay.
Like every once in a while you throw in a word that reminds you that they have an accent.
Patrick Wall says, was it like reading a Guy Ritchie movie?
let me find a passage and try to.
Yeah, the language was very dense, and it definitely felt like you were reading characters with an accent, and you could hear those voices a little bit in your head, which I wasn't really bothered by it at all. It didn't really. I mean, it was obviously a language. There were terminology elements that were a challenge to get through, but like you were saying, Kirk, it didn't slow me down or keep me from getting it. I was too busy being traumatized by the art, which there were definitely some graphic elements all through this one.
Yeah, the guts, I don't know if those were animal guts, human guts, like those angels filleting people's skin off. Like it was pretty brutal.
it was raw. This book has some of the most graphic art that I've seen in a comic this year. I mean, it's probably not number 1, but it's definitely in the top 3 to 4. I mean, it's really intense.
Yeah.
In particular, the villain who does this sort of macabre sort of voodoo stuff, where he's got entrails from animals, hopefully animal, and he's got this hand, right? It's like a severed arm, like right here in the middle of the forearm, and he's using it to do things. Like he uses it to point, he uses it to manipulate objects and move things around. Like it is freaky, and I think they constantly call it a kid's hand. I think they're constantly referring to it as like it's not an adult's hand.
Well, I think he refers to all of his kind of minions as kids.
This is true.
I don't think it's a child's hand. I think it's probably like a teenager's, which isn't too much better, but a little bit.
Yeah, he says the dead boy's hand cares nothing about his wounded pride. I was assuming he was talking about the hand he was holding, but it's possible I got that wrong. But it's a disturbing, nasty sort of thing. I love. Grey Matter Hulk says lock, stock, and 2 smoking Constantines. That was fun.
So here's a very brief example. I'm going to read 2 panels. That's K-Mag, man. You respect or you bucked, boy. Bucked. Got it. Looks to me like Mr. K-Mag's got some spooky wookie of his own. Why'd you need me? Different magic, bruv. And obviously, if you are tuned in to British culture, bruv is brother. But just all of that on top of each other, felt like it was lock, stock, and 2 smoking Constantines. It felt like I was going to use the example not quite as extreme, but it was like a Clockwork Orange, where it had this whole language on its own, where over the course of a novel you can pick it up, but over the course of an issue, if you don't know a lot of hip British slang, you might miss a lot of what they're saying. And I understand it's trying to be authentic, which I appreciated, but I'm not saying it was the wrong choice. I just found it surprising that they went with all 3 of those things stacked on top of each other to make it as difficult to understand as they could.
Oh, Constantine. Yeah, I mean, for me, there were definitely segments I had to read a couple of times to try to get my mind around, especially when the gang leader was talking to his cronies and they were also talking to Constantine, and it was kind of like everybody had a slightly varied dialect. But for me, I really didn't feel like it kept me from understanding the plot or the story. I kind of just felt like I was in this culture the same way, I guess, for like 100, another Vertigo title. 100 Bullets is always like moving locales. So you were in the Bronx one week, and then you're in Louisiana, the next, and the language of that area would seep in for those 6 issues, and you'd have to like jump those language barriers when you were there, because the street kids in one place spoke a different dialect almost than another.
Yeah, just for me, like, I think it's the writing with an accent that is the one that pushed it over the top for me, because that's like very hard. First of all, it's very hard to do correctly, to like actually write in a way that sounds like the accent, but it's also very hard to write in a way that makes it legible when it's not a word.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe I'm being too harping on this too much, but
well, let's talk about the beast in the park. How did you understand the beast in the park that's killing the kids? Because I feel like they left a lot of that to your own guesses at this point. They wanted to like bleed that out, I think, over the storyline, however many issues they're going to do. The way they present it, I was tripping over it. Did anybody feel like they got a grasp of it?
I mean, kind of, sort of, not really, but like you said, I think it's kind of left for your own interpretation until we figure out, like, in the next few issues, what's going on. But I think it's probably like fallen angels, and they've been corrupt probably, and now they're like sacrificing people that are coming to the park. At least that's my interpretation of it.
Yeah, I mean, they do refer to them as angels in the book, but I think like if they spelled out exactly what they were, it would be much less interesting, don't you think? Like,
I love that they don't spell it out. I love
a werewolf is in the park. It's like, okay, we know what we're dealing with. It's just like, here are these angels, and you're like, okay, what does that mean? It's just these yellow light creatures that infect people with bugs that birth little people out of their skin, and like they flay them of their flesh, and like all this really horrific stuff. So it's just they're these horrible unknown creatures that you don't know how to combat, because creatures, mythical and crazy type werewolves and vampires, they all have rules.
Yeah.
So if it was a werewolf, for example, you're like, okay, silver bullets, that's how you kill a werewolf. But this is like, I don't know what this is, I don't know how to deal with it, and it's horrifying.
Yeah, and I love that we get all of our information about it in like secondhand means, right? We have the voodoo guy trying to read entrails to learn about it. You have the kids that were like being attacked, and then what their secondhand information is, and then you get the hobo guy, who might be my favorite like source they have. When they go to the park, they got this guy sitting on the bench, and he decides that he's going to explain it all to them, and it's half gibberish and half information that can be useful,
right?
Which I freaking loved. Like that might have been my favorite part of the whole thing. It was just listening.
He's the one who's like, oh, he's the one who even says like, when you hear singing, that's when you know they're there, right?
Yeah, yeah. So
they're pretty useful, but he's also like
this like red-haired hobo guy on the bench.
They prefer the term homeless bozo.
Well, sure. Yeah, he's just kind of rambling, and while he's rambling, that's when like the beast and some of the gang kids start coming out of the woods there, and then it just all gets raw and insane. And he's feeding rats, and he's calling them squirrels.
I didn't even realize that. Wow.
Dude, yeah, he's like, oh, you're here to feed the squirrels? And Constantine's like,
yeah, sure.
Life of Two Uber says, definitely stuff I can't read. I'm too big of a baby. Yeah, this book was not for the faint of heart. It was pretty gruesome.
Yeah, definitely. Out there. But I love that he's feeding the rats and calling them squirrels, and it's just it's showing us that his perspective is not all on, but he's also not totally gone, right? So his reality is somewhere in the middle, and he's the one that calls them angels and said the angels are cleaning up the city. They're coming to get rid of these gang kids. They're coming to clean it up.
And they are only attacking the drug addicts and the drug dealers. So they aren't, that's why he's calling them angels, is because, he feels like they're doing good work.
That makes sense.
Now, I'm not going to show you the art for the spirits and when they attack, but I do love the way that it's sort of there's like it's almost like they use an angelic filter to it, like this sort of like light emanating out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, they look creepy as heck. They look like something out of Stranger Things with like the crazy long like tentacle finger things, and they're just wild. If you're a fan of that sort of science fiction horror stuff, this is definitely going to be a book that hits those boxes for you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hesitant to say I didn't like it because I did, but I felt like it didn't like grab me really. I felt like there were points where I was like, oh, that's really cool, like the little creatures bursting out of the guy's skin, and like it was. If I explain the plot just as the plot, it's like, oh, that's a really cool X-Files episode.
Classic.
But it just like it lost something in the way it was told for me.
Yeah, and I will say that I didn't come away loving it. I came away enjoying it, but not necessarily finishing it and saying, oh, I've got to read the next few issues of this. I felt like I was like, okay, it's somewhere in the middle. Like I'm going to maybe glance at the next issue and then make a decision when I get there.
Yeah. I would say the book we're reading next week is a better example of that.
I've already forgotten what we're reading next week.
It's your choice.
I picked it?
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
Nailed it. Oh, yeah. There you go.
Which is a gruesome sci-fi story. I mean, it has some spy stuff in it, but I feel like that was told better than this. But it was very similar, like in its building blocks.
Sorry, Kurt, what were you gonna say?
Oh no, I was laughing at one of the comments. Sorry.
Barbarian, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Barbarian confused. Chad is in the chat making some mustache comedy. Hey, good mustache comedy. Always good mustache comedy. So all that other Hellblazer stuff you've been reading, Kirk, does this feel like it fits in with that stuff? Do you think that there's better stuff that people could be reading, or does this seem like the tip of the iceberg for you?
I mean, like for someone that hasn't read a lot of like Constantine, I think it's a good jump into like, getting familiar with the character. I personally want to like read some of the Vertigo stuff because I love the art, especially like the Swamp Man stuff from Vertigo was really good. So yeah, I liked it. I personally liked it. I'm definitely gonna see how the second issue is, but I'm definitely gonna probably stick to it for a couple issues. I usually like to stay with if I'm reading a book from the first issue and it kind of grabs my attention, I stay with it for like a book or two, and then if not, I'll jump off.
And for those that are unfamiliar, Comic Tom, back when he was still doing recap the videos where they were reviewing and reading books, like he and Ryan did a great run on Dangerous Habits, which is a sort of classic Constantine story from the late 80s, I think. And you can buy that in trade. And that was the first Constantine book I read, and I really enjoyed that. It was about Constantine dealing with the fact that he's going to die. Like he's got lung cancer and he's dying. For me, it was I found that a great jumping on point. Although I know a lot of people say that that's like the dessert, and you got to read a bunch of other stuff to earn that story.
Yeah.
But he's definitely a good character. Oh, go ahead.
No, please.
I was just gonna say he's definitely a pretty cool character, and definitely a character that ages through his like transition as instead of like how Batman and Superman stay the same age over the years. He actually ages. Depending on the year it is, and the stories that's coming out.
Sure. Barbarian says those Vertigo Constantine books aren't expensive either, so that's a plus if you want to go back and collect some of those.
But there's like 300 issues.
It's easier than Jonathan Hickman's Fantastic Four. Like, I want to collect that, but that's like how many issues? Like 600, 700 issues, even more?
No.
Like, it's more?
No, it's not that many.
Oh, okay.
I think he did probably like, I don't know, 60 issues.
Shout out Rob Wurst is saying Papa Midnight. Those were all the best stories. All right. So I'm learning.
That was a complete guess on my part, by the way.
Oh,
60
I'm
issues.
sure somebody in the chat will know and they'll say to you.
Nope.
Second Street Marvel's Mary Poppins in it. Okay. Yeah. For me, like this was exactly what I was expecting it to be. It felt very British. It felt very graphic and gritty, and it felt like it was designed to give a few nightmares if possible, which is the world of Constantine. And so I think it checked all those boxes for me. But I did feel like I can't put my finger on what's missing, but I did feel like maybe it's on. I feel like maybe it's on the Constantine side. I just don't feel like there was enough of him in this to really draw me in.
Wasn't smarmy enough.
Ooh, the smarmy spice was lacking.
Yeah, I think like it was a bold choice to have it narrated by someone else, but I think this just would have been better if it was narrated by him and just had like his point of view and his perspective. And it's a book about him. Like it should focus on him. I don't know. Maybe that's narrow-minded of me.
Well, he was the narrator of the Batman Damned story, right? He was narrating that. Yeah. Did you read that, Kurt?
No, that's definitely on my list. That and like the White Knight is like on my list of, because I slept on Black Label when it first came out. But yeah, I definitely want to read that series.
I think it was a fun decision to have him narrate that Batman story because it added a layer. And then when he would jump in and out, I felt like it was a fun perspective on Batman's struggle with the Joker. Here, do we know who's narrating this?
Yeah, it's the gang leader.
The gang leader, right? Okay, I'm making sure that I was like not crazy there. So it's hard to know like. He's we know he's horrible and he's clearly got some connection to dark magic, but we don't like know much about him.
The gang leader?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's hard to really have him be an effective storyteller when we don't know where he's coming from or what his story is.
Well, especially because like you're not even introduced to him until halfway through the book. So you're being narrated by someone who, which is fine. You can have a narrator that isn't in the story, certainly, but clearly it is someone in the story, and you're introduced to him, and you still don't know who he is, or like what his reasoning for wanting to tell you the story is.
Could you imagine if John Constantine was the narrator? Could you just as easily see us sitting here complaining like, ugh, it's so boring. It's just another first person narrating the story.
I mean, it depends on how smarmy it is.
Right?
Like I want him to be a smartass. I want him to, and like telling jokes about the Queen didn't do it for me. I want him to be that John Constantine who like always has a line up his sleeve.
Bitter, sarcastic, biting.
Yeah.
No, I agree. That's what you should be tuning in. Besides the voodoo dark magic, you should be tuning in for that as well.
Yeah, demons and smartassery. That's what this book should be called. John
That's what
Constantine, Hellblazer.
That's what you tune into our show for as well, I
think. Good one.
So obviously, none of us hated this book, but it sounds like at least Alec and I are on the fence about issue 2, and Kirk's thinking he wants to check issue 2 out to see where it's going to go. Do we know if this is a 3-issue Black Label or is this an ongoing Black Label?
I'm not sure. That'd be good.
I don't think it's a 3-issue.
Okay.
I assume that it was at least a longer miniseries, if not an ongoing.
Craig Matterholt's asking why we didn't hit Azarello on Batman Damned. because he is very sensitive about it, and we care.
For me, I don't care about him being sensitive about it. It's just like I'm sure everyone in the world's asked him about that, and the people I talked to, I wanted to just like not ask the same questions everyone else asked, because you can go on any interview with him and hear about what his comments on Batman's piece is. So I mean that was my rationale for not doing it.
I saw that too. Yeah, I didn't want to do, and in all honesty, as much as I like Batman Damned, I want to talk about 100 Bullets. That's why I was there. I wanted to talk about that. I did read the question last week. We don't really want to spoil it because Alec hasn't read it, but Mindshift and I did read it. We enjoyed it, and I'm going to definitely be picking up the second issue of that storyline. I thought, but I'm all about the question these days. In Lois Lane, I'm enjoying the Renee Montoya version. This guy told me about that at one point. And now this, the Vic Sage version, I'm enjoying that as well.
Yeah, I will not be picking up issue 2 of this.
I'm gonna look at it. I'm gonna take it off the shelf, flip through it a little bit, and decide on the fly, in the moment. And there's Comic Head as well saying he liked it, and that one was the larger size, the magazine size.
The younger one.
And the art was better, although you're getting what Sienkiewicz.
One
of my favorite artists.
he's definitely excellent.
And it does earn the black label as well. Although I will say this one earns the black label too.
for creator freedom. Yeah, I'm making a joke about the question about what the black label's about.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, which is still up for grabs. I think the point we came to last time was it's in dire need of a publicity overhaul.
They need to release some sort of statement saying, "Hey, this is the purpose of the black label. This is what we're doing with it. This is where we see it going. This is what to look forward to." Not like, "Hey, we're going to release something before it even comes out and then immediately change what it's about."
Exactly. I'm ready to wrap this up, guys. I think we're pretty much done here, but I wanted to hear a little bit from Kirk about he just launched his channel. I think he's got near 50 subscribers already. He's flying by. He's dropped 2 videos already. He did a live stream test run earlier today, so his channel is going to explode. So what's going to be coming up for Kirk here, man?
I'm still trying to find my place in the whole YouTube scene. I am working on a series called Marvel Box about me stepping outside of my comfort zone because, as you guys know, I'm a huge Marvel fan, and most of my, I say 90% of my books have been just Marvel books, and then back issue whatever. I like Fairyland. I like I like a lot of old school Bronze Age Firestorm. So I'm just trying to step out.
Scotty Young fan here.
Yes.
That Scotty wall is looking wild.
I'm gonna have to do a live stream in front of the Scotty wall one of these days. But I'm working on that. Basically just talking about books that I'm reading that's outside of Marvel. So it might be some Image, might be some Dark Horse. Definitely a lot of DC. As you guys can see, I'm jumping into the DC world. And then just, putting out videos and seeing what people like and, just kind of testing the waters. I definitely want to pick collectors' brains and see why they collect and, kind of do a show on that where I, just pick random people in the community and, come on my show and talk why you love comics,
Sure.
So just a couple things that I've been working on. But yeah.
That sounds awesome.
Hopefully I'll have, But everybody in the community has been really welcoming and opening, and made me feel very comfortable because I'm, definitely shy, even though it doesn't come off as I am.
We can't all have the personality of Alec. We can't all be this sort of effervescent explosion.
This has always given me great anxiety, which is part of the reason why I do it. It's because it's getting me out of my comfort zone.
Yeah. One of the reasons why I wanted to do it. And now I am.
I will say it is a hard time to be getting into DC because they're so inconsistent right now. But I will say what's good is really great, and what's not is really not. So it's hard to like figure out where to go.
Yeah, because you like the new Catwoman run that's going on, but a lot of people don't.
I think Joelle Jones is hugely talented, and if she's writing and drawing a book, I'm in. I am absolutely in. And it's a lot of work. She usually only does like 5 or 6 issues, and then she backs off again. But I'm definitely in right now on that. And I've loved the Lois Lane run all the way up to now. And next week, I think, is the next issue. I'm pumped on that.
Hashtag Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen.
And let's see, Alec, what's coming up from you in the next week here?
Monday, I'm going to be on with you. But before that, I'm doing the Gotham City Chronicles, right? What's the name of it? I always forget. Which I feel really bad about.
You got 2 shows Monday.
I got 2 shows on Monday. One at 9 and one at 10 Eastern. I think that's on Kavi's channel, right?
Yeah, usually Kavi hosts.
And we're going to be talking about my favorite Batman book, Gotham Central.
Brubaker.
Yeah. Excellent. So we're talking about the first trade of that. And then afterwards, doing a little something with Boy Who Has 7, which I don't know if he's announced yet.
But yeah. Tune into the Boy Who Had 7's channel Monday night, and you'll get the first of an exciting series that he's going to be doing. Ooh, mysterious. I have a ton coming up here. So thanks for those hanging around. I'm going to be on, let's see, the Boy Who Had 7's trying to put together another Comic Gories game show either Friday or Saturday. So I'll be ganging up on that, helping him out with that. I'm going to be on with Stay Puff on his channel on Saturday afternoon.
Stay Puff.
He is awesome. Yeah, Stay Puff is so cool, and he invited me on, and I couldn't make it last weekend because of soccer. But this weekend, I'm set and ready to go. Saturday night, I'm on with Random Wolf. Rena is doing her first live stream. She's got a show that she wants to do, and I'm hanging with her on her channel on Saturday night. So that's all going on Saturday. I've also got a video I shot today that I'm editing, and I'm hoping we'll be doing a live premiere, either a Thanksgiving or a Friday live premiere for that. And then, like Alec is saying, Monday night, hanging out with the Boy Who Had 7 live.
And then, of course, next Wednesday, back on my channel for book club, talk about Strange Skies Over East Berlin.
And we're going to be joined by Edwin the Comic Jabroni, who might be on to 1,000 subs by then. He is super close, like 960, something like that. He's flying.
And on the Comic Core channel, right before that, we're going to be on the greatest comic book show ever, episode 4.
Which was consistently awesome today, and should definitely be something you check out over on the Comic Core channel if you missed it.
And I'm also brainstorming a series to do with art. Let's say that.
Looking forward to that. Well, thanks everybody in the chat. I really do appreciate it. I hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving weekend, although it's technically the middle of the week, but hopefully you have a nice long weekend and get some time off.
Turkey.
Oh, I thought you were trying to give me a virtual high five of some kind. I was like, oh, hey, I'm so proud of us. It only took how many months? All right, everybody. Have a great weekend, and don't get hurt on Black Friday.
TV's worth getting trampled.
Thanks for coming.